Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Jasmine Anderson, Good Day OK anchor for Fox 25 in Oklahoma City, and I'm honored to serve as your moderator for Black Women Voices. Let's talk about media. It's the final panel of the year. I can't believe it. We made it, right? Well, my hope is that you receive truth about our industry through the experiences of this prestigious, phenomenal panel of women that I admire dearly and will introduce to you shortly. But first, for those of you who, may be joining us for the first time, Black Women Voices is an Oklahoma City-based monthly virtual series that creates safe space for Black women to share their lived experiences, to educate and lead the community into action or self-reflection. Black Women Voices elevates the often silenced truths of Black local women by giving them a platform to feel empowered, supported, and heard, seeking to bring structural and systemic racism to the light in order to create a more equal and just system of accountability for all. Panels were hosted this season monthly from June 2020 to December 2020 on a range of topics with Black women centered as the experts here. And tonight, this panel centers a range of Black women's depth and experiences within a wide range of media, journalism, and public relations sectors. Panelists will speak to their personal experiences in the field, as well as the messages, images of Black women within the media. Now, I must say, the views and opinions expressed on this panel do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of the Black Women Voices Project, nor its sponsors. So before we begin, BWV would like to thank the following sponsors, because none of this would be possible without you, and I have a list of them. So please bear with me because they deserve all the love that they can get. Blue Cross Blue Shield of Oklahoma, Heartland, True Sky Credit Union, Whirl, Overshoot, Metro Family, Guden Group, Vest. We really, really appreciate you and thank you so much for your sponsorship and all of what you do, because without you, none of this would be possible. And of course, a lot of you probably like, how can I get involved? How can I contribute to this wonderful matter here? Well, if anyone is interested in sponsoring or giving a tax-deductible contribution to Black Women Voices, go to okwc.org/donate and write Black Women Voices in the additional comment section. Okay, so we're all in our living room, as you can see, it's the pandemic. We have to adjust. This is a virtual panel. So everybody get comfortable, okay? It's okay to take a breath real quick. Welcome to our house, the BV house. That's what I'm going to call it tonight, okay? Relax, get ready to engage, but understand, at our table, we have house rules, okay? And it's one simple rule. Respectful and inappropriate commentary will not be tolerated, and disparaging comments will be screenshotted and deleted from this platform. We don't want to be the police here, policing things. So please just bear with us, be sweet and kind. And my biggest thing is listen, and hopefully you can leave with new knowledge of this industry here. Okay, so now that we got all of that out of the way, without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our phenomenal panelists. I feel like they're my sisters at this point. Some of them I've met during stories. They are the eyes and ears of our community. So without further ado, let me begin. Carla Hinton, raise your hand because I know your names are listed, but I just want people to see you here. Yvette Walker. Jillian Whitaker. She just got married, everybody. Congratulations, Jillian. Crystal Yosef. And Patricia Smith. So in television, in print, we love to do this where, every morning, every evening, we have editorial meetings where we have to pitch our stories and convey these stories. And I know these women can tell their stories better than any person can. So I'm going to give them the floor. And I'm going to start with Yvette Walker. We're just going to go down the line here. Give us a spiel of what you do. I mean, you're a superwoman, but go ahead, take it away.
Hi, everybody. I'm Yvette Walker. I am the Assistant Dean at the Gaylord College for Journalism and Mass Communication at the University of Oklahoma. I'm a former journalist, and I'm also a podcast host at positivelyjoy.com. My day job, I am very student focused. Basically, I'm the Dean of Students. And so I care about the students. I care about their success at the college and at the university. I also teach a couple of classes. So again, students are my world. Did I make it in 30 seconds?
I mean, that's what, of course, you understand this. You're a professor. It only would make sense. You're the assistant dean. So we expect nothing but the best, right?
Yeah, and I'm really glad to be here. Really, really glad to be here. Thanks so much. It's going to be a great night.
It sure is. Well, Patricia, would you take it away for us?
Hello, I'm Patricia Smith. A lot of people know me as Pat or Patty Cake. My day job, I work with a nonprofit organization. I love doing that. My other day job, I am a freelance writer, I'm a photographer, social media strategist. I love reading, I love writing, and I love God. I've been really blessed and had the opportunity to write for CNN, and I had 18 stories that actually was on CNN. I report. I was a superstar reporter. I've also freelanced for the Cheyenne, Arapaho Native Indians, and that was also an awesome experience. Loved it. And other than that, I try to look at the life as being glass half full and not empty.
And you forgot you took a trip to Uganda as well.
Oh, yes. Again, that is affiliated with the Sowing Hope Foundation. I am the assistant to the CEO founder, and I get to work with Sister Rosemary Narumbe. She is such an awesome person. She's a CNN hero. She is Time 100's most influential person in the whole world. So I have had the opportunity to share with her, travel with her. It has been an experience of a lifetime. I've been to Uganda about a dozen times, and it's been so rewarding.
That's amazing.
And I'm really glad to be here. They say we don't have to tell our age. I won't tell you my age, but I'm older than all of these wonderful young ladies, and I'm so happy and honored that they even chose me. I kind of thought I was out of my league to even be here, but since I guess I'm super blogger, Carla tells me all the time that everybody knows me and I know everybody, but I do blog on 365 Days of Black History. That's a group on Facebook. And I'm the co-editor of the Black Oklahoman page that is also on Facebook. I have about 10,000 followers.
I mean, so many followers, and we are looking up to you and following you, Patricia. Great to have you here. Crystal.
Good evening. Thank you to Jasmine for moderating. And it's always a pleasure to see you. And to all the women with Black Women Voices, I've been paying close attention since this thing launched in June. The first conversation was really eye-opening and rattling, and it was an amazing space to see the table set for people who look like me. So I am on the strategic side of communications and media, being a PR practitioner on this panel tonight. You know, I joked that my mom doesn't even know, she couldn't put a succinct sentence together about what I do. PR sometimes comes across as intangible. So that can be a little difficult to explain. So hopefully you guys will get to learn a little bit more about that tonight. My name is Crystal Joseph again. I started a business called Conjo Concepts in January 2018. This was on the heels of some great experience that I received in doing PR and marketing in DC and also in Oklahoma City before I branched out on my own. Conjo means beautiful in an Ethiopian language called Amharic. You know, my hope is that the concepts that I work with, the concept that I am within the city and the entities that I work with, I just hope that I can bring some semblance of beauty to the community and to the networks that I work within. So I'm super happy to be here and glad to have this PR seat at the table amongst all of you ladies. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Crystal's just everywhere. If you see her, I mean, I always get a press release from Crystal. She's on top of things. Also spent a lot of time in DC as well. 8 years at that, which is incredible. Crystal, thank you so much for being here. Jillian, our newlywed.
Hi, and thank you all for having me. I'm so happy to be here. I feel humbled being a part of this panel with these distinguished women. It's amazing looking at you all. Formerly, I was Jillian Whitaker, but now I am Jillian Bray. Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. I work for Langston University, Oklahoma's only HBCU. But where my passion and heart is better Black news. I'm huge on media. I'm huge on journalism, especially when it deals with people that look like me. And we just focus on the positive news about people with brown skin. And I'm also a contributor for Metro Family Magazine here in Oklahoma City. I write pieces for them from time to time. So journalism is my thing. It's my thing.
Yes, and Jillian, I must commend you on creating your own independent venture here, especially when you see a lack of in our coverage here, whether it be print or television. So I appreciate the effort and what you're doing right now. In fact, when I moved to Oklahoma, I remember seeing your work. It was one of the first things. Like, I'm searching, I'm Google searching, and I'm like, who's out here? And what you were like one of the first people to pop up. And I saw that purple hair, and I was like, I know she's up to something. And your work is incredible. And like I said, you inspired us. You inspired me even to create something at Fox 25. And I'll get to you, Carla, because I don't want to take your time away. But I'm just going to say this real quick. Community Focus was created amongst me and another colleague, Maria Garcia. Hopefully she's on here, where we tell positive stories about Black and brown individuals in our community who usually do not get the spotlight. So it's people like you, Jillian, who have given us the idea to expand on our networks, on the Fox, on the ABCs, on the NBCs. So continue to do the work that you do. All right, I'm gonna toss it over to Carla, our Hall of Famer.
Hi, everybody. I just love that we have such a diverse group. Can we just clap for that? So I write for the Oklahoman and Oklahoman.com. I have been there since 1988, which is kind of crazy, but I love what I do. I have covered a range of things, including social services, minorities, transportation, DHS, Oklahoma City Hall, the city of Moore. But most people know me for my current beat, which is religion. I'm the religion editor. So I'm responsible for writing stories about spirituality and faith. I also do some stories on nonprofits, but for the most part, my stories are about faith and spirituality. I do kind of a mix. I do a range of features, and then I occasionally do some breaking news when it occurs. And I love what I do. There are good days and there are bad days, just like in anything. But for the most part, it's really rewarding to be a member of the media.
Absolutely, Carla. And the work that you do is incredible. I know you have a nickname too, the Church Lady.
The Church Lady. That's it. That's me. I'm okay. I'm leaning into it. I
love it. Because normally, as journalists, we have different beats. You are assigned to multiple ones, from board, city. You've done it all, and you really embraced this role here. So I really appreciate what you're doing. Yvette, I know you also dibble and dabble with faith with your podcast. We will get to that, of course, throughout our broadcast. But let's talk about our why, because as you know, in our industry, I mean, we have very, very tough days, and sometimes we have to recenter and regroup. And I think the best thing for me, when I have a tough day, I just go back to my why. It resets me. So my first question to you, ladies, is what is your why? Why did you decide to embark in such a chaotic world of media? So let's start with Yvette, if we can.
Absolutely. I have always wanted to be a journalist. As a little girl, I actually wrote newspapers. I drew newspapers on pieces of paper and did the comics and the whole deal. And I knew that I was going to go to journalism school for college. I worked on the high school newspaper. I mean, I was that nerd. So I always knew that I was going to do this. I like to write. I like to tell stories. All we are storytellers. We are communicating the stories in people's lives, the good times in their lives and the bad times in their lives. And we also are the how-to storytellers and the deconstructive storytellers, like why are things happening, you know? So I haven't been a reporter for a while. After I was a reporter, I moved into editing, where I can work with the reporters in crafting the stories and the packages. And then as you know, I moved into academia. But that why, I think, and the why now is seeing these young people who want to do what I did in my previous profession. And so getting them ready for basically what is a tough world out there. So I guess my why is accuracy when you think about it, because telling the stories accurately means telling the stories of all the communities and not leaving anyone out. So telling those Black stories, those brown stories, telling those stories of immigrant neighborhoods, all of that becomes an accuracy point. And diversity is not soft and fluffy. Diversity is accuracy. And so if we are storytelling and we're telling all those stories out there, we are helping everyone understand the world around us. And so I think that's my why.
Beautiful why at that. Patricia?
Oh, okay. My why is because I always wanted to make a difference. And I could use my words to make a difference. I could take pictures to make a difference. I love talking about real deal people, places, and things. I love working with the youth. I hope and pray that out of the many organizations that I've worked with and volunteered at, I volunteer my time um, and my skills for these organizations so that hopefully before I leave this earth, I can make or impact one child's life. I also, when I blog through the 365 days of Black history in the Black Oklahoman, um, Yolanda actually asked me to be one of the admins on 365 days, and I purposely utilized that platform to talk about our past, where we have been, where we have come from as Black and Brown communities. So many people don't realize what a proud race we are and all the accomplishments that we have made. So I list them daily. And I know people probably like, oh, she's blogging again. Is it 4 a.m. in the morning? Because I want the young people of today to realize that we have been important all our lives. And as Black women, we have carried America on our backs from 400 years ago through slavery. We helped raise the children of our own, the brown and Black children, but we also raised the white children. So I want to make a difference. I want to make people aware of all of our accomplishments as a Black race and brown race. Also brings us up to the future that we are making people aware of where we are, who we are, what we can do to improve. And hopefully in the future, we can be anyone we want to be. We can be what? President of the United States? Vice President of the United States? So that's what I'm in my latter years. I'm trying to do my bucket list that I hope I make a difference. That's why I'm doing what I do.
And you certainly are making a difference. And I mean, I tell everyone, go to your page, your two because you're constantly posting throughout the morning, throughout the night, and it just shows how much you really, really love this industry and storytelling. So thank you, Patricia.
Thank you.
Crystal?
Yeah, mine maybe isn't as succinct as Yvette or even Patricia. You know, I started PR was when I graduated from college in 2005 with a PR degree from OU. I didn't really know where I was going to go with it. I was working in Norman with this degree and looking for jobs in Oklahoma City. And at the time, you know, having a career in PR seemed so unattainable to me. I thought that the idea of storytelling for me was also there in the journalism school. And I took classes that were well-rounded enough to kind of give me a little bit of an in, and decided to go down that PR track. It took me moving to DC and really getting my first sort of jump start in the PR industry before I really knew my why. I was kind of chasing job after job in DC, just having fun and not really knowing, you know, what the next year was going to bring, you know, as far as like applying for jobs and am I going to stay here? So I was a little bit more sporadic. I had that degree, so that was kind of my anchor. By happenstance, a lady that I thought that I would just have coffee with one day, just to, she's an African woman, she's from Ghana. She became my boss, my first boss in PR. We went to coffee one day and somehow it came out that I had a PR degree. Like I'd almost forgotten. I'd been in DC for 6 years, almost forgotten. I was working in sales and marketing and hadn't really found that in for PR yet. And so we're sitting and talking and I was like, oh yeah, by the way, I have this degree. And she was like, you're coming to work for me. And that's how I got my in with PR and kind of learned that storytelling aspect. You know, how multifaceted it is and how fast paced it is, especially when you work in an agency. Every day is different. And that really suits me. I think, you know, I've done a 9 to 5 in 4 walls before, but especially now that I've started off on my own, it's amazing to have something that I own and that I've created and the community supports. And so, you know, Jasmine, when you mentioned, you know, that reset, like when I'm up at 2 a.m., you know, I'm high-fiving myself in the middle of the night, you know, with a good idea or something like that. Like, that's what keeps me going. It's chaotic and crazy as all get out, but I wouldn't change a thing in my spastic little path. And yeah, I'll do it forever. And here in Oklahoma City, probably forever.
Yeah, it's like you have to be your own cheerleader as you go through this sometimes, because you don't get the support sometimes. And I mean, thank you so much, Crystal, for sharing your story. And I love that. I mean, you have a very unconventional way of getting to your dream. Not everyone knows what they want to do, and that's the reality for a lot of students that are, you know, in school. They switch majors, they just kind of lost. So it's wonderful how a mentor could come into your life and just make all the difference. Thank you for sharing your truth. I appreciate it. All right, let's move on to Jillian if we can.
Yes, yes. Okay, so I am a big advocate for, if you don't like something, try to change it, or try to do something to help change the narrative of what you're complaining about. And so I know when I was in school, I'm a UCL grad, go Broncos. When I was applying for jobs and just, you know, watching the newscast and everything, even though I knew journalism was my passion, I didn't like how Black and brown people were represented in the media. And I didn't like that when they did show us, the positive was just sports. It was sports related. It wasn't really anything else. And if it wasn't sports, we committed a crime, or, you know, stole something, killed something, or it just wasn't a good look for Black people. And I didn't like that. And I had a hard time accepting that if I did get a job in the media field, that I may have to cover stories that I don't like, that, you know, people that look like me. And I remember having a conversation with one of my professors, and I was telling him my frustration, and he was white, and he didn't realize the complaint that I had until I brought it to his attention. So he started being more attentive to the newscasts and the newspaper articles, and started noticing that when he did see somebody that was Black, it was either sports related or crime related. And so I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do with that yet, but eventually, after praying about it and speaking with one of my really good friends, Better Black News was birthed. And it's just a commitment to the African American people that news on this newscast, on this platform, is going to be uplifting and informative news about Black people. I don't want people to look on the newscast that's on, you know, the regular, you know, TV channels, and just have a bad taste in their mouth about Black people if they're not in, you know, interaction with us on a daily basis. If that's all they see, you know, I guess I would be scared too, walking down the street with a Black person with their hood on, because when I see them on TV, you know, they kill somebody or they rob somebody, and that's just not our narrative. It's not. So that's how Better Black News is created, and I'm really happy about it. It's my baby. So yeah.
It's incredible. Jillian, you are changing the narrative, story after story, and we really, really enjoy every story. Like I said, it was one of the first things I saw moving to Oklahoma City, and it brought me comfort and joy knowing that someone like you was here telling me stories fearlessly. So thank you so much. And Carla, can I call you the GOAT, Carla? Because you are certainly.
Well, I don't know. I think I'm only as good as the people around me. I have really good colleagues, and then our community is so wonderful here in the metro area. We have a wonderful community. I think I started out in first grade knowing that I wanted to write. I used to write little books at school, and my mom said it got to a point where she would go up to the school for like parent teacher conference. They like, we want to show you all these books, you know, that Carla wrote. And this is like I said, this is in first grade. And so I've always wanted to write, but I've also read a lot. And so the more I read, the more I wanted to write. I don't know if I really thought about writing for newspapers. I kind of had this dream, and some people know this about me. I had this dream of being living in a penthouse in New York and writing for magazines. I don't know where I got that dream from, but I'm far from New York, obviously, and I don't write for newspapers. But I think I love what I do because we get to tell stories, and at the end of the day, that's what I am, a storyteller. So my why is I just get to tell people stories. Everybody has a story, and sometimes you have to dig for it. You know, sometimes it's obvious, but sometimes you have to dig for it. But everybody has a story. Most of them are positive. Some may be negative. There's so many stories of people overcoming different things in their lives and that sort of thing. I love telling someone's story. My daughter will always tease me when we go out, because people just come up to me and start talking to me. Some of them know who I am, but a lot of them don't. They just come up and start talking to me, and I love it. So that's my why, is to tell people stories. And then also I realize that the media has a lot of influence. We have a lot of influence, and I feel like we should use it wisely. I don't think I realized that when I first got into this business, but I feel like we should use our influence wisely and tell people stories. So that's pretty much why I do what I do.
Well said, Carla. Using our platform for good and understanding the importance of our role, which is incredible. So speaking of great news, because you all bring great news just being here tonight, we definitely have a praise report to talk about. So if we can roll the names, all right, let's start off. Let's see what we have here. I'm so incredibly proud to mention these wonderful women. Breaking news. If you haven't heard, everyone, because we do have that here, MSNBC has named Rashida Jones as president. She's the first Black person to run a cable news network. So imagine the changes that could happen with her being in that position. A lot of these decisions that we can't make in our roles don't happen because we're not in those management positions. So she's going to bring a lot to the table. Congratulations to her. And that was breaking news this week. We also have breaking news that happened today, and I'm looking at it right as we're going here. Our next person that we need to congratulate is Monica Richardson of the Miami Herald. She becomes the first Black executive editor ever and for the Miami Herald, which is incredible. Could you only imagine what kind of power she can bring to print news? Also, 3 Black women added to the communications team of the White House. Coming in at first, we have Karine Jean-Pierre, Deputy Press Secretary. Our next name here coming up, they're on the screen for you to see. Simone Sanders, Senior Advisor and Chief Spokesperson for the Vice President, Kamala Harris, our elect here. Also, one more name to talk about here, Ashley Etienne, Communications Director for the Vice President-elect Kamala Harris. So a lot of history being made here. I thought it was very important that we bring that. And it also brings me to our next question, where we talk about representation and why it matters. I want to start with Crystal with this particular question, because obviously you're looking through the PR lens. Why is representation so important to you in your field?
I have to start off by saying I think that I am sought after to the degree that I might be for that very reason. I think being a business owner in the PR world, that's something that I just kind of have to harness, is the responsibility of ensuring that when I am working with clients, that we've got the diversity ground game covered, So I do think that is an asset and a benefit for clients, With my job on the side of PR, it is to serve you all as members of the media with everything you need to get my clients the link on the website or a clip in a newspaper. I need to package up as much as possible for you. And so in that package, there's going to be as many diverse story angles or photo opportunities, and as much as I can do to package that up to make your job a little bit easier and for you not to groan when I send you emails, Jasmine. I appreciate that. But also, local matters too. I think when we speak about representation, there are so many times that we get frustrated whenever somebody flies, somebody's flown in from another state or, a place to come and kind of infiltrate what we're building here. I think that local matters as well, and that's super important. But yeah, just that package and just making sure, it's not just checking boxes. I think it has to be earnest. I think that, it has to be something that a brand, and I know we'll talk about it a little bit later, but, the brand voice has to be true. And so when we talk about representation, I do think that it has to be, earnest and thorough. And that's hopefully, what I'm charged with doing with my clients.
You're doing a great job, I should say. You're very intentional with your work, and it shows for sure. Jillian, this question is so on brand for you. Take it away for me.
Well, I think I want to give this back to you, Jasmine, because remember when we spoke offline, when you said that when you got familiar with Better Black News, it kind of inspired you to bring that idea to Fox 25 to do what, I don't know what it's called. I don't want to get it wrong. Yes, so just you being a Black woman brought that to the table. Somebody that doesn't see issues in the Black community, that's not Black, are not going to be aware of those issues. So since you and I share the same hue, you're going to bring that back because you know exactly what I'm talking about. You're familiar with, usually when Black people are in the media, it's sports related or crime related. And so that inspired you from being inspired from Better Black News to, bring something, to the table for, the Fox 25 segments. And it just speaks volumes to that. I don't know if anybody else, would have brought that back if they weren't Black. Of course, I'm not saying no, you don't have to be Black to bring ideas about, minorities to the table, but it just speaks volumes. It's important to have those different voices at the table to bring ideas. Everything's not so whitewashed. It's very important to make sure that we're covering everybody. So
you said it, and I'll kind of speak to how community focus was kind of birthed here on Fox 25. It started off with just a meeting at that table. A lot of us are fighting to get to that table. Fortunately for me, I understand my role here at Fox 25, so I was at that meeting, and it was like a think tank situation. We were literally at a place for hours just trying to find ways to better our newscast. And of course, that was a topic for me and another colleague of mine, various colleagues of mine, Tanya McCleary, who is my mentor at work, who has really helped groom me in all of this. And some of the ideas that we brought up involved just not seeing Black and brown faces in a positive light. I mean, everyone knows the first, and if you don't know, everyone watching, the first 5 minutes of a newscast is usually the most important part of your newscast. And in that, what do you usually see? Gloom and doom. And who do you usually see? Black and brown faces and gloom and doom. And, after a while, if you're seeing those images every single day, every time you turn on the news, you develop these stereotypes. People outside of our race develop these stereotypes. So it's very important for us, while we're in these roles, to speak up and say, hey, there is a problem here. What can we do to fix it? And hopefully you have bosses who are willing to give you that opportunity to say, okay, let's do this. Or if they don't, walk away and create your own, like you did, Jillian.
Yes, amen on that.
All right, Carla, I'd love to pass this conversation, or I should say question, to you on representation.
Well, I do think representation matters. I like the fact, and I don't know if a lot of people go into journalism. I don't know if a lot of journalists of color go into the business knowing that should be something they should know and maybe take to heart, because I don't know if I thought about it early on in my career. I was just trying to kind of get going. But eventually, I did learn when I got to go into some of the meetings, and people asked me, what I thought about things. The idea was not to pass the buck or anything, to say, hey, yeah, I don't think that's a good idea, or had you thought about this or something, or the Black community is going to see it this way, whereas you're doing it that way. And so I think I did have confidence, and people did ask me questions at certain points. And now that I've been at the Oklahoman for a long time, I think that we're having more of those conversations, and people don't mind, coming up to you and saying, hey, what do you think about this or that? And we, my colleague, Clyde Bunny and I, we don't mind going to other people and saying, hey, do you think we should do this? Or had we thought about doing something like that? So I do think it matters. And I think that a lot of newsrooms, as far as I know, particularly after what happened with George Floyd, I think a lot of newsrooms are looking internally and looking, what can we do better? I think they are doing better. I don't know why it had to take that to happen, but I do know that a lot of newsrooms are doing that all over the country. And at this point, we don't care why it's happening. It's just a good thing, right? It's a good thing. I think it has happened over the years, but I think right now you're seeing a lot of good things happening in that area.
Yeah, and Carla, you really bring me to my next topic here, which is something that we're still, trying to master and get through right now. Let's talk about the Black Lives Matter movement, because I mean, a lot of our stories, I mean, I can look at all of you and say that you've had to cover this in some way within your roles. I don't know about you all, but for me, if there was a moment where you were kind of struggling to say, okay, as a journalist, you have to be objective, but I can't remove the fact that I am a Black woman. So what do? I struggled really hard with this, especially after George Floyd's death and all of the all of what had erupted at that point in Oklahoma City. Because there one part of me wanted to say, okay, do I join the protesters? One part of me said, okay, do I keep my journalism hat on and keep telling the stories? It wasn't until I spoke to my mentor who said, okay, understand that the movement has many, many roles. And for me, it was, you know, being the journalist that I am and just really taking that up a notch and saying, okay, I'm going to spread awareness about this issue. I'm going to tell the story the best way that I can, because again, there are multiple roles in this movement. You have protesters, you have people going to lobby for change through laws or legislation. And then you have the storytellers like us. So I just said, okay, I have to take it up a notch. And I don't want to keep going about myself because I really want to talk to you guys about this. But an article had popped up with the Hollywood News Reporter, and the title was, I have struggled. Black TV journalists talk George Floyd coverage. And a number of things, a number of, and I encourage you all to go look at it. I'm not going to go into detail about it, but there were 10 journalists who talk about the effects of covering such a traumatic experience. I mean, because if you think about it, we're experiencing Black trauma ourselves. You know, we can't remove that. So my question for you is, if at all, how has the movement impacted your role or changed your outlook about your field? This is kind of a loaded question here. And how has your organization, your place of employment, adapted to the ongoing unrest in our country? And are you actually getting the support at your job? Who would like to take on this question first?
I can. I will say this. This is I really commend the Black journalists who were having to cover this on the air, you know, in broadcast journalists. I think it was probably really tough. And I don't know if I saw that article, but I did look at some other shows where there were Black journalists talking about this, and other journalists of color too, Hispanic journalists, Native American journalists, who were talking about this issue of having to cover the protests and things like that after George Floyd and what that was like for them. I didn't ever have to do it. And I often wondered how it just, there was a big question mark in my mind. What would that have been like, right? But now I will say this, having said that, I did go down to Tulsa about a couple of days before the Trump rally down there. And so I talked to some Trump supporters who were there early, getting ready for the rally. And then I talked to people in the Greenwood district, the historic Greenwood district down in Tulsa, where they were getting prepared for Juneteenth. And all these different issues, you know, were swirling. There was this kind of a tension between the two groups, maybe not on purpose, but there just was. And I made it through that. Everyone was nice on both issues. And then I went down to Tulsa later and covered the issue on the Black Lives Matter mural that was painted down on in Greenwood. And that got to be pretty interesting covering that, because I don't know, I think there were people in the community, I'll say white people, who, you know, they looked at me as a journalist. I'm talking about here in Oklahoma City, not Tulsa, because I don't know if anyone from Tulsa has contacted me about it. But I do know that there were white people here in Oklahoma City who saw me as a journalist, as a Black journalist, covering it, and just assumed, you know, that I'm on one side or the other or that sort of thing. I really took pains to make sure that I talked to some of the Tulsa City Council members. And if I didn't talk to them directly, I covered their meetings and made sure that their voices were heard, you know, when they were discussing what to do with that mural. So I think it's difficult, because when people were going coming after me about my stories and just mad about the whole situation, to be quite honest with you. Some of it wasn't my story. I realized that some of it was just anxiety about the whole situation. And some of it was anger. I think there was some bigotry there. I'm not going to lie to you. I just think at the end of the day, we all need to lean on each other. And because I do think that as a journalist of color, we're maybe going to experience things a little bit different. I mean, there's no way of saying it. I've had to do self-care, and I will say my newsroom, our leader, Kelly Fry, she called me one day. I was talking to we had a Zoom call, and I was talking to my colleagues about how this whole thing has been just really, it's just been difficult in a lot of ways. And so she called me right after that Zoom call, and we talked, and I really appreciated her doing that. And she said, if I ever need anything, to let her know. And so the other editors have done the same thing. When I've talked about, what are they doing for people's safety and things like that, everybody has been really, really, really wonderful across the board.
And
I'd like to follow that, if that's okay, Jasmine. So Carla has struck on several things I think are really important. I'd like to point something out. So first of all, journalists really take what they do seriously, and to be honest, put themselves in dangerous and violent situations sometimes to get the story for the audience. So there actually is known trauma to journalists. The Dart Center was formed to take a look at that. The Dart Center for Journalism and Trauma, which is a project of the Columbia Journalism School. So you have journalists experiencing trauma, and now you have Black journalists experiencing trauma related to issues about themselves or what they look like or how people feel about them. So now you have another layer of that. So it's important to know that studies have shown that yes, this can be very difficult work, but journalists feel strongly about this, and they want to go cover stories. They want to put themselves out there. And I'd say a lot of the younger journalists are assigned beats that perhaps, I think it's just traditional to cover the police beat or cover beats like that. And usually that goes to the younger reporters. And so now you're going to have younger reporters who don't have a lot of experience, who are of an ethnicity, and they don't have the experience to practice the self-care or to know how to do any of this. So I think it's important for people to understand that, first of all, journalists are not the enemy. If anyone goes home and did forget anything else, please hear that. And that journalists work very, very hard, and sometimes in difficult situations, because we believe it's important for you to understand what's going on. And so I think understanding that trauma can be very real, it's documented, and I just wanted to point that out.
I think I'll go next.
go ahead.
I've lived 60 plus years, 6 decades. I actually remember the assassination of President Kennedy. I remember the assassination of Martin Luther King. If you had told me that in the year 2020 that we would still be experiencing what we're experiencing right now, Black Lives Matter, because I just wanted to be a person. I've always thought I didn't care whether I was Black, brown, green. I just thought I was a person. So when Mr. Floyd died, it took my breath away. I had to exhale for a moment and think about what that meant, because it took me back to the 60s, y'all. I actually remember going to the back door of the Dairy Queen to get my hamburger. I had to work in the back of a department store, won't call the name, because this was in the 70s when I was in high school. My peers were working out front. I was working in the back. I went to the toilets or bathrooms that said colored. They had white women, white men, then just colored. And I can remember my mom would go and put her hankies, you know, we had hankies back those days, not tissue, on this toilet and put her hands down so I could sit on it to go to the bathroom in a public place. And it just said colored. So she would go in to make sure there were not any men in there. And it was feces on the wall. So that being, and even the theaters, I had to go upstairs. We had to sit in hard chairs and look over down where the white people were sitting. And I would have to think, how come I can't sit down there and watch Disney movies? So for me to be experiencing this in 2020, Black Lives Matter, all lives matter, blue lives matter, brown lives matter, green lives matter. I mean, people, we are people. So why should I have to be the best at everything all my life, from grade school up through college? To be number one, I had to be 3 times better or more than my peers that were white. So that being said, that's another reason why I blog so much, that you see me so much in 365 Days of Black History, because I want everybody to remember that history. I think for a while I put up a blinder. I don't think I wanted to remember that I had to do all those things when I was growing up. I just wanted to be a person. So Black Lives Matter. We can make a difference. I hope I inspire the young people to make a difference. You can be anybody you want. You just have to strive and work really hard.
What a testimony, Patricia. Thank you so much for sharing that. I know that could be very tough. And I want to say this to everyone that's watching. It's not really, it's pretty difficult for journalists to be vulnerable and to talk about their truth, because usually we're on the other side of the mic. So I commend everyone right now who is just being so vulnerable about their truth, and I appreciate it. Anyone else want to talk more about this, the movement and how it's impacted you at work?
Yeah, I will, for sure. I mean, you know, it's definitely changed the movement as it kind of culminated again. Last June really made me think about my business and maybe adding on some capacity that deals with diversity and inclusion. I mean, like I said earlier, you know, my business is very steeped in that, I think, in being a Black woman. But, you know, I'm redoing my website right now, and I'm like, do I need to work on SEO? Do I need to make sure that, you know, if somebody searches, you know, Black communicator or Black PR practitioner, like, am I going to come up? Because, you know, that's all of a sudden something that people are paying attention to, which is great. But also, you know, it's kind of made me think about how I can shift my business. You know, when I first saw the video, I was staying at my mom's house, and my natural inclination in watching that video was to protect her. So it was kind of like this shifting. I was working from her house. I was having some stuff done at my house. And my natural inclination was to be like, I hope she hasn't seen this yet. And if she hasn't, how can I protect her from, you know, what she's going to see, which was just vicious, vile negligence. And so, you know, pure disregard for human life. And so I was really in a pretty interesting place at that time. I mean, I think 2020 has done that for all of us, but, you know, it really hit me hard. And I guess because I wasn't staying in my house, you know, that was another component. I just felt very, alone and sort of discarded. You know, when incidents like this happen, it really makes you think about, it kind of paralyzes you as a Black person, because you're reminded that at the end of the day, no matter what you do, if you start your own business, if you graduate from college, you buy the house, you do all these things, you check all these boxes to create this fulfilling life, at the end of the day, there are people out there who just want to relegate you to being an N-word. And so I had to sit in that for a while. You know, it made me think about my dad, seeing him out there, you know, being killed actively. And so it really took me to a hard place. And then with COVID, you know, being cooped up inside, you know, you're only leaving to go from point A to point B. I mean, it made me timid to go outside and be out in public, because, you know, you're only going from here to there. And you're like, oh, shoot, if I stop at the gas station, I hadn't planned for that. COVID has me afraid of it. Now, you know, are Black people just getting killed out in the streets now? Like, what is happening? Because you're so stuck inside and you're cooped inside, and it was just so bizarre, you know. But I think, you know, intersectionality comes to mind with this conversation too, I think, in media, because of course we are professionals, but we are also Black, and we are women. And, we carry many, many hats and as communicators, and we're looked to sort of hold this mantle on behalf of an entire other, race and sex, gender of a person. And so it's like, I was also feeling like I was balancing all these hats. And I was like, are all the hats on my head? If I take one off, does that make what I need to do easier? Are they crooked? Are they cute hats? Like, what's going on? And, the text messages just kept coming in from white friends and people wanting to check on me and make sure I was okay, which I appreciated. But also, I had to have a conversation back with someone, and I just wasn't ready to do that, And of course, I took care of my clients. One of my biggest clients of the year had a big event that got the green light to exist in COVID. And I was super grateful for that. So I was able to kind of keep my head down and stay focused with work. But then I had other people who aren't clients reaching out and also asking me to help them craft statements for Blackout Tuesday, which very quickly became a thing. So, just being community centered and driven, I did that. But, all of that took a toll. And all of that, I think was presented to me because I am a Black communicator. I am a Black woman. And I, at the end of the day, and now looking back, 9 months, 7 months, however long it's been, I'm very grateful that people felt comfortable to come to me, but there was a little bit of a barrage or like a deluge of outreach that kind of hit me. And, it made me kind of have to come up out of the depths of my little shadows, a little bit. I will say, I think even more importantly than what we were able to do from a communication standpoint with Blackout Tuesday and the appearance of that, I think, another test is coming up with Black History Month. Like, I absolutely do not want to get the same text messages from the same people being like, hey, what do I say? How do I acknowledge Black people? You've had 7 months to steep in it. So, all of that goes back to, we have to do this work day to day, and it can't be something that you spring on somebody just because, your heartstrings are tugged in this one moment. We as Black women, we as Black people live in this all the time. And so, I just want to, I guess, say that, I think it's important to remember us as people and then to look to us constantly and not just when it suits, you or your business or your organization. There are real people behind this. And in instances like this, we do need that network and support, but also, we try to do our jobs the best we can. And it's a lot. It's all these hats. Like I said, is it a cute hat? Like, I'll wear it if it's cute. I don't know. But it was a lot, and it has forced me to change how I look at work and how deep I want to get into that work, which I do.
Absolutely. I interviewed a lady who was a therapist because the story was focused on Black trauma. And she mentioned, like, look, everyone, you can't, eventually Black Spirit Week, as she called it, is going to end. So, which means pretty much you can't support us because it's trending, because it's the big headline right now. We need that continued support. So, Crystal, thank you so much for diving into that. Anyone else want to speak on this topic? Everyone good? Okay, I will say this, that I had a moment because everyone is sharing their truths, and I want to make sure that I do the same, although I'm the moderator. For me, it was very, very tough. The Breonna Taylor story in particular was very tough. And there were moments, there were new moments or new developments in the story. And sometimes a soundbite will just take you. And at the time, it was a family member. And just listening to the soundbite, I was on air. And it was hard for me to continue. It was very hard in that moment because usually, you just put your hat on and you can just keep going, but then you ask yourself, when does it stop? When do we get to chant and say, finally, a breakthrough? I felt defeated in that moment, and I had to take a second. I think I was tossed into Malcolm. If you all are familiar with the show, Malcolm does feature pieces. They're fun pieces. I had to toss to him. I could barely do it. And thankfully, my co-anchor, he sensed it. I got off the desk. Sometimes you got to take a break. It was a commercial break for me. I had a moment. He said, "Are you good?" I said, "Okay, I'm ready to come back." And it's good to have, allies in the workplace if you have them, but understand that it needs to be continuous support. It can't just be for the moment because it's the big headline. Because right now, things are happening. But remember how we felt in that moment. Or how you felt in that moment. I'm speaking to other people, how you felt in that moment. We've been feeling like that. forever. So I'm going to move on because I know this topic can bring a lot of emotions. And I thank you again for sharing your truth. My next question for you is, you know, we go through a lot of storms, but at the end of the day, we have some very, very rewarding moments. So what has been the most rewarding aspect of your career? Anyone would like to start?
I'll
Okay,
start.
go ahead.
You know, I like to talk. Actually, I've had the opportunity to meet, interview, and take pictures of real deal people, places, and things. It has been so heartwarming to be able just to see nature, to see people as they are and where they live. So that has been the most rewarding of me being able to be a CNN I reporter or work for the Cheyenne, Arapaho Indians, or just 365 days of Black history. I get to communicate with real deal people, places, and things.
Just doing what you love just always brings joy, right?
Right.
For me, community focus that's my little baby. And I will say with this, we had to kind of put a little pause on it because of the pandemic, and we're finding new ways. For me now, it's about United Voice. If you guys don't know about this, it's where we dive into those taboo discussions about the movement, the trauma. So I've been able to really dive deep into that. Anytime I can tell a story and see the impact of that story, and it's doing something for good, a positive change, I feel like I've done my job. You know, no award, no Emmy or whatever the case may be, because we get those in our industry, could ever amount to just seeing that tangible change.
I'd like to go
Okay,
next.
go ahead.
I'd like to, so there's a lot of rewarding things, as you say. But I'd like to spotlight somebody right here on this call.
Okay, go ahead.
And that's Jillian, because Jillian was a student of mine. And I'm so proud of her. So for me, the rewarding moments come from seeing students go out there and do what they were made to do, you know, to follow that dream and to fulfill that dream and do what they were made to do. And so, and that's my life right now. But even when I was still in full-time journalism, you know, I was working with high school students. I was coaching, you know, young journalists to learn more about the business and to go on and do things. And so while there can be really rewarding moments like in the midst of a story or a project that you've done, and I've worked with Carla at the Oklahoman, and we've done a lot of great stuff together. But I think it's that next generation and seeing, and you know, and Jillian had purple hair in school. Yes, she did. And she was always going to be somebody. She was somebody special, and she is somebody special. But I knew that that her life was going to take her down a path that wasn't going to be traditional. And when she graduated and came up with Better Black News, I said, "Yep, okay, yep." I can see what she did there. So yeah, no, just seeing people go out there and fulfill their dreams and stay in this business that I love. So that's what's the most rewarding for me.
Absolutely. And Jillian, when I say she created her own lane and her own brand, I mean, that's hard to do and you're going strong. I've been here for 5 years and I've been seeing all of it. So good work. And that just shows how great you are, Yvette. You were her professor. And not to mention, you went to some of the top J schools in the country as well. Northwestern, okay, an amazing school, and then Mizzou, which is another incredible J school, along with OU, of course, which you are now the assistant dean, which is awesome. So great work on both of you ladies. And anyone else?
I think for me, and this is like, I guess a little cute moment, but I think for me, when we are in the recording season, we usually record for Better Black News in the spring, and then we release in the summer. I think for me, it's when I'm out in the field and little Black girls are fascinated with my hair and with me and they're excited that I look like them and I'm doing a story. And it's really cool. And especially young ladies, not so much like little girls too, but it's young ladies. I'll be in the mall sometimes and usually people can point me out because of my hair. And it's like weird sometimes. And they're like, aren't you that girl from that Better Black News thing? And I'm like, yeah, and it's crazy. And they get so excited because it's just, fresh, because it's uplifting Black news, and for me, that's my reward. That's my reward, that I'm inspiring people that look like me, to know that you see this negative image on the TV or on the paper, that no, we over here too, and we're actually kicking butt. Like we doing our thing over here, and it's cool to see the little girls like just light up and just like, well, I want to be like that, mommy. Can I have purple hair like her? And it's just like cool. So for me, that's my reward. That's my reward.
That's awesome. I know when young girls grab the microphone and they just get into this mode of, I want to be a reporter too, it speaks a lot of volume. So thank you, Jillian. Appreciate that. Crystal, you want to go?
Yeah. I started a business, and for me, that's rewarding every day. The fact that I even know how to do payroll, and I'm somewhat self-sufficient, and I've been able to kind of step into this entrepreneurial life that I never would have imagined. PR has taken me there, and of course the community supports me, and there's such a self-growth to this business. It's very, very late nights, but like I said, it's the 2 a.m. high fives, and it's me knowing that I can do this, and again, just the community being behind me and paying me to speak on their behalf or help them craft messages or help them connect with people. Some of my clients, like, we just want to hang out, but it's just, I'm living my dream honestly every day, and it's stressful, and my friends are probably like, are you sure? Because you cry a lot. But I really do. I really enjoy this work, and I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to work with really, really special clients who care and who work so hard in the communities. And then also to have this media, the media relations side of what I do is so important. A lot of my friends in the media, like, we are genuinely friends. Of course, I'm pitching them stories and they'll tell me no. They tell me no all the time, actually. But all in all, just the inner workings of all of that and how it all comes together is truly rewarding. It's like magic to me when it all comes together, and I'm just super grateful that I get a chance to do it.
That's right. That Black girl magic. I love it, Crystal. Thank you. Carla.
What I really like about doing what I do, and what's so rewarding to me, is just educating people about how other people live and go about life. Because I think everybody, and it seems like increasingly we are more so, we're all in these little silos. A lot of people, we're not, because we're journalists, right? So we meet people all the time who are different from us. But increasingly I find there are a lot of people who don't. And so I think the media, for me, what's rewarding is someone can pick up the newspaper and maybe they don't like this particular group, or maybe they don't know about this particular group, but what they've heard is not great. And they'll read something. And even if they don't change their mind, maybe they were educated. Maybe they learned something that they didn't know. And I think that's so important, particularly now. And a lot of times people will tell me, hey, I read what you said about such and such, and I went to their event. And even though I don't believe what they believe and I don't agree with them, it was a really interesting event and I learned a lot. And so I think that's what really inspires me. And I also think about people like Jillian and some other young people that I've met. I'm just amazed at how you guys can take today's tools, all the technology, and just run with it. I'm just amazed. My kids will tell you, I think my niece called me a digital immigrant. So anyway, I'm not as savvy as I probably could be, but the young people now, they're just doing so many things on so many platforms. And I just love it. I can't be jealous or anything, because I think that's where we're supposed to go. We're moving into a new era. And so I love to see them. And so that's rewarding to me too, to see another generation and another generation.
Yeah, Carly, you hit it right on the head. We have to evolve in this industry. You see, how the industry has been condensed. We have this thing called MMJ, multimedia journalists, where they do everything. They shoot, they write. My first job was like that, where I was producing, I was writing, I was shooting, and then I had to put my entire newscast together before I would come back and anchor it. And that's the stuff that people don't see. They just see that 10 seconds on the camera or our articles that are released on the web. So great work by all of you. So we're coming up to our 30-minute mark, actually 25 minutes left, and we have a couple more questions. So I'm going to try to get through these as quick as we can. So let's try to tighten up our responses, I guess. It's like choosing a lead for a story. We just got to condense it somehow, put all this magic into the final 20 minutes here. But I do want to toss this next question over to Carla and Yvette, because you guys really focus on faith and in journalism. So Carla, we know you as the religion lady, and Yvette, you have a wonderful, wonderful podcast called Positively Joy, and you talk about your faith, and it's a spiritual thing, and I love it. And I want to talk about, how do you all balance your faith and your love for journalism? It might be easy because it seems like you're putting both of them together. Who would like to start?
I'll say it was not easy at all. So Carla and I are roughly the same age, and so we came up in journalism being taught that you are objective. And so I'm a Christian. I believe in God. I love God. I always have. Grew up Catholic, baby baptized Catholic. But as a journalist, I almost never even talked about it. In many of my positions, I was in charge of the front page. So I never wanted anyone to say that I had some kind of agenda or I couldn't be completely objective. So then I moved to Oklahoma, and we're in the Bible Belt, and things felt a little different here. And I actually felt like I could be a little bit more of myself. And so right now, my journalism job is the podcast, and where I can be myself, and I can interview other Christians about what they're doing and tell other kinds of stories. In fact, tomorrow I've got a great interview with a comedian who loves God, and he uses his comedy to bring people to Christ. It's really funny. Go to positivelyjoy.com tomorrow. But yeah, that was a transformation. For many, many years, I would never have been public about my faith. I just never would have, because again, I think there's a sacrifice that journalists sometimes make to, again, be completely objective or to appear that way. We're human beings. We're not objective. We're not built that way. But we feel like we have to do that. So I feel like such a release now, and I'm loving what I'm doing, and God, give God the glory.
Well, it is difficult, but here's something else that's funny about me. This happens to me all the time. I didn't realize that when I started. I mean, I didn't realize how difficult it was going to be. I'm like Yvette. I am a Christian, and I like being a Christian. I love God, and so I was excited about being, religion editor. But let me just tell you, it's not. Religion is difficult to write about. It is, and it didn't ever occur to me at the very beginning to maybe not tell people that I'm a Christian. It just never occurred to me. That is who I am. It never occurred to me. It might have been easier in some instances, but now it's just a known thing, right? And so nobody. I think that people like me because of it. They're like, she's going to be open about that. But one thing about me, I cover all different faiths and people of no faith. So I try to be fair and balanced in that area. One thing that is the hardest, though, and maybe not so much now, but when I first started, there were Christians who were mad at me because I was doing stories about other faiths. And that got to be difficult at first. I'm such a people pleaser, and I was so, I was just disheartened that people, didn't like that I was doing stories. But I always came back at them and said, this is news. This is a story. These are people in our community. Maybe you don't believe what they believe, but it's still important. And now people have accepted that's my role. And I just say, hey, we're going to try to educate you about someone that's different from you. But it was hard at first. And sometimes it can get a little tricky too. Sometimes when things happen, and you just kind of have to say, this is part of what we do.
Yeah, and you all are getting actually some love, I see, in the comment section here. Speaking of faith and just, really bringing attention, because a lot of times when you see in media, a lot of times a lot of different religions are attacked because of, their beliefs or what, certain stereotypes are attached to certain religions. So it's good that, Carla, you're doing that. to just say, hey, look, why don't you read this story with an open mind and go from there, even non-believers as well. So thank you for that. And Yvette, I mean, I have to check out this podcast because I'm definitely interested for sure. I know you have a lot of followers. And like you said, it is very tough to do this. I shouldn't have said easy because by no means as it is, because in J school, they teach you and they say, you know, when it comes to your faith, you got to be tight-lipped about it. You have to be objective. So kudos to both of you ladies for stepping out of the box and saying, hey, this is what I love. You know, I'm going to put my love out there for God, and I don't care who else says anything about it. So kudos to you both.
Oh, Jasmine, can I say this? I will tell you this, that a couple of years ago, I went to Israel. It was an interfaith trip. I went with 7 Christians, 7 Jews, and 7 Muslims. And I'm telling you, it was a life-changing experience. And it would have been different had I gone any other way. And so you take those experiences and you think, I wish everyone could do something like that. I mean, we have to broaden our horizons. So I just want to put that out there.
Oh, I love that. And I love that you get to go on trips like that to say, okay, look, I've experienced it. And to come back and write their stories and share their stories, that's incredible. You have to keep us posted on your next trip too, maybe post pandemic, of course. Thank you, Carla. All right, let's keep it moving. We have a couple more questions. And hey, for those of you who are commenting in the comment section, start thinking about your questions for our panelists because they are here to answer them for you. Please be nice. You all have been great so far. We really appreciate you being here. My next question for you all is, how have you been able to amplify Black voices in Oklahoma, specifically women? Because, I mean, we are at our panel here, so who would like to start?
I can. You know, from my PR perch over here, you know, I do receive inquiries from media from time to time if they're looking for a Black freelance writer. And Black freelance writers have been one of the hardest things for me to figure out how to place, you know, with a magazine or a local paper that maybe is looking for to add a little bit of diversity. Here and there. And so, you know, I've been building out lists over the past couple of years of hair and makeup artists, you know, other folks in the creative field too, hair and makeup artists of color who can work on people of color for photo shoots, photographers, videographers. I've got so many lists in my phone where I'm just trying to track all of that and connect and meet people out, you know, when I used to be out and about before COVID. And just trying to, you know, continue to be a resource and plug in people of color, women of color, as much as I can with media outlets. You know, Jillian and I haven't worked very closely together yet, so I'm not speaking to her, but hopefully we will. You know, she's probably got that game covered. But, you know, I'm speaking about other publications, you know, run by white people. But they do ask those questions. They ask that of me, and I'm very grateful to be able to plug that in, and people are talking about it and thinking about it. And I think that's important whenever we can plug in Black creatives. You know, and then just generally speaking, you know, I'm always taking coffee meetings and, you know, looking to in the future to really dig into some mentorship opportunities for any young people who maybe want to get into PR. You know, I'm always happy to do that. And so that is something I'd like to continue and focus on with my work moving forward for women of color, especially.
Wonderful, Crystal. Thank you. Patricia, would you like to go? Or Jillian, I'm sorry. Your hand's up. Go ahead. She's like, I'm ready.
I don't want to get in front of anybody, but I just want to piggyback off of what Crystal said. I have a partnership with Metro Family Magazine. Like I said, that I'm a contributor for them from time to time. And when we first began our relationship, that was the first conversation that we had. The lady that's over the magazine, she said she realized that Metro Family Magazine was white and it wasn't really inclusive. And we had that discussion. And so she wanted to make sure that she was conscious of making sure she had representation in there. And so I'm thankful for my platform, Better Black News, because if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to be linked up with her to write for Metro Family Magazine. So I get to, you know, be that voice for Black moms. I have a 2-year-old. And so I wrote a couple of pieces, you know, dedicated to mothers and just talking about our experiences. One in particular, Black women, you know, we have the lowest breastfeeding initiation rates out of all races. We have the lowest breastfeeding initiation rates and duration rates. And so I was able to write a piece on that. And so just without that I don't know if that would have been in Metro Family Magazine. So I'm thankful for them for partnering with Better Black News and allowing me to kind of be that voice for Black people. So I just wanted to just mention that.
Absolutely, Jillian. Thank you. Patricia?
Trying to get the mic on.
There you go.
I hope and pray that I've reached out to the community through church, through Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, the many platforms that I am, to empower not only women, but the youth. I want to reach out and continue to reach out to the youth. I've worked with nonprofits to include like Calm Waters, the Center for Children and Families. I've worked with Shiloh Camp, which is one of my greatest loves. And when I work with those organizations, I can give you an example. I reached out to the community, Shiloh Camp, and Carla has been so instrumental in always putting wonderful things up and stories about Shiloh Camp. It's a Christian camp ran by two wonderful individuals, and they are trying to enrich our Black children's lives. And so I'm constantly, like Carla told me one time, she said, I think you know everybody and everybody knows you because I'm always begging. I'm feeding Carla stories. Okay, Carla, I got an idea. Or Carla, I need a favor. Can you cover this story? Can you squeeze it in? I know the deadline is Friday and this is Wednesday. So I hope that I continue to reach out to the community to share stories, to ask questions, to enrich our children's lives. Again, my focus right now, since I hope that I live as an example to those children and that we can help them to improve. So that's my.
Absolutely. And you also have Patty Cake Greetings from the Heart, which is like a one-stop shop. And you're helping all of these kids and everyone. And Patricia, this is incredible. Keep doing the work. I might have to join. I'd love some help too. Can I join? Is it possible? Okay. All right. Who do we have next? I love this question because, again, this is why we're all here. We're here to uplift our Black women, and not just Black women, all women who are in this chat right now. We even have some men in here that are tuning in, and we appreciate the support from you. Who would like to take it away?
Just really quickly, I'd like to point out that the podcasting atmosphere has such a low bar to get into that there's such an opportunity for all kinds of voices. And so on my show, I'm always looking to provide, either a forum, a place for someone to talk about their experiences, or even some kind of a partnership. I'm working with a young woman who is a meteorologist. And this is not in Oklahoma because we go national and international, but a meteorologist who has her own podcast where she reads the Bible. And so she comes on my show, and her name is Angel, and Angel reads the Bible. And then another young woman who has a podcast who is all about positivity. And then another woman who has a podcast to try to tell the stories that some people have difficulty telling. These are Black women. And so I try to find an opportunity to get those women on my show because there's so many opportunities. And I encourage, all the Black girls out there, you can start a podcast really without knowing a whole lot, because I did it this year. And so many podcasts were birthed during the pandemic. So we're seeing a lot of new shows out there and a lot of voices. And so there's opportunities for Black voices.
Absolutely. Did I miss anyone for this question? Because I do not want to miss anyone. Carla.
I was going to say that lately, so I do a lot of different things, religion, but lately I've been doing stories on Black bookstores, Black-owned bookstores. I did a story on Bell Books and Boutique over in Northeast 23rd. They just opened in September. And then I also went to Tulsa and interviewed the owner of the Fulton Street Books and Cafe. And so I really enjoyed learning about these women and putting their voices out there because they are Black-owned businesses, and in particular, they're trying to get people to read. And there's so many good books out there, on racism and other different things. I really had a good time doing that. Like I said, it's off the beaten path. It wasn't religion, but I wanted to do some of those things, and the Oklahoman was nice enough to let me do that. And hopefully we'll continue to do more stories like that.
Yes, and keep us posted too, because we all want to be a part of that experience with you. Yvette, a lot of people are asking about your podcast and they want the link. We have positivelyjoy.com. Is that correct? I want to make sure I have everybody's back in the comment section. That is correct, right?
That is correct. And I talk to everybody, but I really love it when I can bring voices of color on there. So definitely check that out.
I love it. Love it. So we have a couple more questions and then we're going to take it to the audience because they have a few more. I want to make sure we get it. We're at the 10-minute mark, but we're going to try to get through this real quickly. As media professionals, how can we better serve our communities together as a unit? I mean, we have a lot of experience on this panel. So how can we work together? I know a lot of you already know each other. I know a few of you here. How can we come together?
Well, one of the things that we've talked about amongst ourselves is I had thought about starting the chapter, an Oklahoma chapter of the National Association of Black Journalists. That would get us all together in one room and get us meeting on a consistent basis. And we could talk about some things that we could do, not just for journalists of color, but also for our community, you know, community service projects, maybe doing some help teaching people how to write their news releases, or you know what exactly we're looking for in news releases and things like that. I think that we could do that together. So I'm going to try to put something together here in the next couple of weeks, and maybe after the first of the year, maybe we can do at least a Zoom chat and start talking about it.
Absolutely. I'm a part of the National Association of Black Journalists. It's a wonderful organization. So to bring a chapter here would be great for students and aspiring journalists. So Carla, I'm going to just say you're the president. You're the president. I'll be the secretary. Patricia, you bring in all of the members. I'm going to make you VP for sure. You definitely have to be VP. Yvette, I mean, whatever role you want to take, go right ahead. Crystal, Jillian, we're going to coordinate all of the virtual events together with our experience. So ladies,
I just got to give it a really quick shout out. There are on the college campuses NABJ chapters. The students are doing some great work. So we got to reach out to them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. UCO, I'm actually the advisor for that chapter there. So maybe we can bring the chapters together, which would be incredible. All right. So now that we kind of hammered that, we're going to have NABJ in Oklahoma City because we have to represent, we have some wonderful women in journalism. My last question for you all is, at the end of the day, I mean, we're tired, but we have to learn how to turn it off. And I know we all had this conversation before about self-care, but how have you been able to maintain work-life balance? Because with this crazy news cycle and what's been going on in this world, it's been very, very tough.
I'll start. I'll just say for me, you have to protect your sanity. So it's okay to turn off everything, to unplug and just reset and have some family time, some alone time, some meditation, music. I mean, it's completely okay to turn off, unplug social media, the news, whatever. We have to do that to reset. Otherwise, we'll get burnt out and we'll just flatline. Like, we have to reset and regroup, and we have to be disciplined on that, like taking time to unplug.
Absolutely, Jillian. Thank you. Patricia?
I use my photography. It's, I can freeze time. I can catch sunsets. I can catch birds flying. So photography for me is my reset.
Love it. A good photo will always do it for you.
You know what? I will say this. I'm not very good at this, but every couple of years, something happens and I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to dip out because it's just too much. It's too overwhelming. I tend to go, or I might be juggling, 25 stories at a time. And it's like, can you give up 20 of them and just do 5 for right now? So it's really hard for me, but because one of the things I like to do is read. And then so when I'll go to bed, I'll get on my phone and I'll start reading other newspapers. And then you're like, why can't I go to sleep? Well, that's why, because you're up and you're, doing everything. And so like Jillian said, unplugging is really important. I'm learning that. But one of the things that I've learned during the pandemic too is my daughter gave me a little karaoke microphone. So so I really like doing that. So I think I need to do a little bit more of that. And sometimes she'll come over and I'm dancing through the house with the karaoke. Who knows what song I'm singing, but it's just to relieve the stress for like 10 minutes. And then I'll go back to doing my work. But anyway, so that's been something to help me. But it is important. It is.
Yeah, Carly, you have to do the complete opposite of what you do on the daily basis. And I'm gonna put you on the spot. I have to put you on the spot. What was the last song you sang? And if you want to give us a little tune, a little serenade, feel free to do it.
Well, I'm not going to serenade you, but it was a Fred Hammond song. It was, I think it was "Keep Me in Perfect Peace." If you know anything about Fred Hammond. Such a sweet communion every day. I seek your face. Anyway. So sometimes I'll sing other songs, but a lot of times it's Fred and Kirk and all those folks.
Oh, we love it. We love it. I love that. I'm gonna have to add karaoke to the list. For me, I like DIY projects. So I'm constantly tearing down and rebuilding. I'm doing something, whether it's putting up a picture, you see a picture there. This picture will probably be gone in about a month or so. Creating a place of peace for me, especially outdoors. I had an issue with just being trapped in a space, especially with the pandemic. And I transformed my little patio. It's a tiny little patio. I made it into my own oasis because none of us could travel right now. So I call it my thinkubator. I go out there, I read books, I read scriptures, whatever I need to do to add to my peace, whether it's lighting a candle or just saying a short prayer, something to keep me going. So we all have these weird things, but they work for us. Anybody else?
I'm just taking notes from Jillian and Carla. I mean, I am not good at boundary setting. It's so elusive for me, and I'm working so hard to get to that point. And I see light at the end of the tunnel. I think year over year, things get a little bit more streamlined for me, and I'm more and more able to do that. But when I do muster some type, it's trying to be around people as much as possible. Pre-pandemic, now it's me and my dog. I talk to my parents all the time. Zoom has been a saving grace just to keep me feeling connected, but I am recharged when I'm around people as well. So there's that balance for that too, where, I'm trying to relish alone time during the pandemic and, turn my mind off and turn my phone off so that I don't go crazy looking at Twitter every day or TikTok, which I love. But, it's so elusive, and I'm working on it. I'm going to try to take the last 2 weeks of the year off. I'm going to set an out of office, and people will just call me instead, and that's fine too. But I'm working on it. So thank you, ladies, for showing me the way.
Hey, it's a work in progress. I mean, we're all trying to fine tune and figure out ways to just, speak to our well-being, because sometimes we neglect ourselves as journalists, as a PR specialist, anything in the media. It's a selfless job, so you commit for sure. Ladies, I'd like to do this in any panel discussion that I do, is to leave a tidbit of wisdom. Is there a saying that gets you going? Maybe there's an aspiring journalist out there who is looking at you and they're like, I really want to be her. What in one sentence, it's a challenge, in one sentence or a phrase, what would you like to leave?
Well, I have a sign hanging on my door, and it says, Dean Walker, she's nice, but she means business.
I love it. And I know you mean business, okay? Because this one here, when I say Yvette, she's serious about the commas, everything. When you all the names that you saw coming up here today, Yvette made sure it was in line, and she's speaking like a true assistant dean. So thank you, Yvette. Anyone else?
I would say don't ever sacrifice who you really are. I'm real big on that. Again, before I launched my own thing, I had debated whether I wanted to give up my purple hair, trying to look for a job, in the media field. Obviously, you can't have purple hair on the traditional news stations. And so that's just a part of me. It wasn't a fad. It wasn't a time in my life like purple is me. I'm just, purple is my thing. It's just like it's my thing. And so I'm really big on not just losing yourself. So if I had any information to give to anybody, it's just don't sacrifice who you truly are. Stick with who you are.
Yeah, commit to your authentic self. I love it. Anyone else?
Yeah, along the same lines for me, what comes to mind is be you and do you and just make people feel something. I think that makes you memorable and it gets you far in life, and just stick to what you know.
Mine is not particularly to do with what we're talking about today, but please wear a mask. It is not political. It saves lives. It saves your life and it saves my life. And I want to live each and every day. So please, everybody, put on a mask.
Well said, Patricia. And just to let everyone know, just an update for what I had this morning, there are only about 30 ICU beds available across the state of Oklahoma right now. So keep that in mind. Think about your family members when you go out every day to the grocery store. If you are hanging out with people, just please keep that in mind. Wear your mask. I echo that same sentiment. Patricia, thank you. Anyone? We're waiting for me now. Okay, so my thing is bloom where your feet are planted, because a lot of times in our industry we are trying to go to the next market and the next market and the next market, and we really don't soak in the experience in the markets that we're in. So make sure you leave your footprint in the sand wherever you're at. For me, it's mentoring. I love working with young girls, aspiring journalists. That is what I do. So anytime I can do something like that, that's outside of news, really, and just really embrace the moment that you're in and to stop thinking about, okay, the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. Really, just really immerse yourself in that. So, and be the light for others because they're looking to you, especially when theirs has dimmed down. Okay, so thank you all so much. We have a couple of questions. Hopefully, let's see if we can get to them really quick. Are you all ready to answer some questions? Okay, it says, I would like to ask each lady, what is your legacy statement that you want us to remember you by? Wow, I think we kind of did that question, but does anyone want to add on to that? That's a very, very great question by Marsha. Thank you. Anyone?
I think it's just that I have in some way inspired or touched the life of someone, and that I live beyond my physical years. And so something that I have done will go on. And in the industry, obviously I'd be thinking about the students that I've worked with or whatever, but really anything that I just made the day of somebody. I turned someone's day around, and that in turn led to something else. We just have to continue. We have to live the way Jesus would want us to live and love each other. And so I just hope that people remember me for that.
Thank you, Yvette. Anyone else?
Marsha Beasley is one of my best friends, so she's asking questions. My legacy, I hope, will be that I made a difference. Just that one-liner. And we need to share love, share what love really looks like, but make a difference. Thanks, Marsha. Love you.
Thank you, Marsha. And Patricia, thank you. And you certainly are making a difference for sure. Anyone else?
I think for me, it would probably be if you see a problem, if you see something that you don't like, instead of complaining about it, try to be the change you want to see. And again, like I said before, that's how Better Black News was birthed. I saw a void and I did my best to fill it, or I'm doing my best to fill it. So if you see something you don't like, just be the change you want to see.
That's right. Go against the grain. Go against the grain. Anyone else?
I think I want people, I want to be known, or I hope that people will remember me as a connector, someone who connected people together, connected, inspired, and educated people about the world around them. That's really what I've tried to do through my work.
And same for me, a hybrid of that. I think what everybody has said so far, you know, what I just said, I love the idea of, you know, just making people feel something by your presence, that they know who you are, they can see it, they can feel it, and that's something that they can take a little piece of you with them as they move on. So, you know, especially in my work, it gets so hectic and 20,000 miles an hour every day, all the time, it seems. But, you know, if I can have those moments where I can pause and somebody else can pause, and we can have a shared moment together, and also that connecting piece, like Carla said, I'm nothing if not, you know, for striving to connect people within my community. So, yes.
Absolutely. That's a great question. Great responses, ladies. We have so many questions coming in now, and I know we need to wrap up very shortly, but I think that's a good point to wrap it up on. Just your legacy statements. For me, it's just I want to make my ancestors proud. As generic as that may seem, it's really, really real. Because at the end of the day, they are my foundation. They are the reason why I am and the reason why I am standing. And just, you know, you're going to enter these newsrooms, you're going to enter all of these spaces, and people are going to challenge you. But at the end of the day, you have to remember who you are and remain your authentic self. Because at the end of the day, they do see your light and they're going to try to dim it. And you just have to keep pushing. You have to keep going, because there's always going to be someone that's going to try to tear you down. But just to keep pushing and do it with a smile and walk out and be graceful. So that's going to do it for us.
Jasmine, we can't hear you, like at all.
See, that happened one time, and it would be at the very end of this, right? Okay, but I want you to hear some of the comments that were said, because I think we're going to end it on the question note here, but a lot of the people were saying this. I'm just going to run down. Great panel. Thank you. Yes, don't complain. Get to work. Let your light shine. Thank you, ladies, for letting this all happen here. Let's see, because they're just moving so fast. They're saying, great panel, great panel, great panel. Everybody's enjoying the panel. Thank you, Pat. Thank you. That's lovely. So many things are being said right now, and it just attests on how well you all have performed tonight and have been able to be so vulnerable and share your truth. Because a lot of people, they really, really don't know what we do. And we're fighting multiple battles, and I know it's hard to share your truth. And you did it tonight. So I commend each and every single one of you. And Carla, you are our new president of the NABJ chapter. So let's make sure we get together. Black woman voices. Can we say that on 3? Everybody unmute. Unmute. 1, 2, 3. Black women
voices.
There we go. So on behalf of Black women voices, we hope you are inspired tonight and gained a new perspective of some of the challenges and the beauty of this media industry. Good night, everybody. Mask up and stay safe.